My father humiliated me in front of over 200 wedding guests. He raised a champagne glass, called me lazy, and joked that I'd never become anything in life. People laughed. My sister looked away. And honestly, part of me wanted to disappear. But then 3 Marines stood up from a nearby table. The entire ballroom went silent when one of them looked my father dead in the eyes and said, "Sir, you will stop disrespecting Major Ethan Cole." What happened next changed my family forever. The ballroom lights reflected off crystal glasses and polished silverware, while my sister danced with her new husband in the center of the room. Everyone smiled, laughed, and celebrated like we were the perfect family. But we weren't. I sat alone near the back corner of the reception hall, adjusting the sleeves of my dark suit jacket, and hoping I could get through the night without becoming my father's favorite target. That hope lasted maybe 10 minutes. "There he is," my father suddenly announced loud enough for several tables to hear. My lazy son finally decided to show up. A few uncomfortable laughs spread through the room. I lowered my eyes toward the table. Same voice. Same insults. Same humiliation I'd been hearing since I was 16 years old. Lazy. That was my father's favorite word for me. He used it after my mother died and my grades started falling apart. He used it when I worked construction jobs instead of going straight to college. He used it every time I disappeared for months without giving anyone an explanation. The truth was, I never disappeared. I just couldn't tell anyone where I'd been. But my father never cared enough to ask. Tonight, though, he seemed especially motivated to put on a show for the groom's family. He lifted his champagne glass with a grin and said, "While my daughter became successful, my son became an expert at sleeping late and wasting his Even my sister looked uncomfortable, but she still said nothing. The groom's mother forced a polite smile. "I'm sure he'll figure life out eventually." My chest tightened. Part of me wanted to walk out of the ballroom right then. Another part of me, the exhausted part, wondered if maybe my father was right. Maybe no matter what I accomplished, he would always see me as a disappointment. Then he said the sentence that finally broke something inside me. "You know," he said with a mocking laugh, "some people are just born without discipline." Suddenly, the table behind him went completely silent. 3 men sitting there slowly stopped eating. Broad shoulders. Straight posture. Sharp eyes. Marines. I had noticed them earlier sitting near the groom's relatives, but I assumed they were family friends or former military. One of them calmly placed his fork down on the table. Then all 3 stood up at the exact same moment. The entire ballroom became quiet almost instantly. My father frowned. "Can I help you, gentlemen?" The tallest Marine looked directly at him. "Yes, sir," he said firmly. "You can stop disrespecting Major Ethan Cole." My father blinked in confusion. "What?" The Marine nodded toward me. "Your son served 2 combat deployments with our unit." The room went completely silent. I closed my eyes for a second. I never wanted attention. Especially not like this. My sister stared at me in shock. "Ethan, what are they talking about?" I swallowed slowly before answering. "I joined the Marines 4 years ago." Gasps spread across nearby tables. My father gave a nervous laugh. "That's ridiculous." One of the Marines reached into his jacket pocket and placed a challenge coin beside my father's champagne glass. "I served under him," he said calmly. "And if Major Cole hadn't pulled 2 wounded Marines out of a burning vehicle," the Marine continued, emotion visible in his voice now. "Your son is one of the bravest officers I've ever known." I looked down at the table because suddenly I couldn't handle everyone staring at me. For years, I had hidden my military service every time I came home, partly because of confidentiality, mostly because deep down, I knew my father would never believe in me anyway. The groom's father slowly stood from his chair. "You're a Marine officer?" he asked. I nodded once. "Yes, sir." My father's expression completely changed. The arrogance disappeared first. Then came confusion. Then shock. And finally guilt. Real guilt. You were overseas all this time?" he asked quietly. "Yes," I answered. "During all those months you thought I disappeared. I was deployed." The room felt painfully still. For the first time in my entire life, my father looked small. Not angry. Not intimidating. Not powerful. Just ashamed. One of the Marines spoke again. With all due respect, sir, lazy people don't sacrifice years of their lives for others. My father looked at me, his eyes beginning to water slightly. And in that moment, I realized something important. The approval I had spent my whole life chasing from him no longer mattered the way I thought it would. Because the people who truly knew my worth had already spoken for me. A few moments later, my father slowly stood up from his chair. In front of the entire wedding reception, he cleared his throat and finally said the words I never thought I would hear. I was wrong about my son. His voice cracked slightly. And I think I've been wrong for a very long time. Nobody laughed after that. By the end of the night, the wedding wasn't what people remembered most. It was the moment respect finally entered a room where judgment had lived for years.